Okay, so buckle up, everybody, because this deep dive is going to be a wild one.
Huh.
The articles you sent in about TikTok's fate in the U.S.,
Yeah.
I was hooked all weekend. It was like watching some crazy political thriller play out in real time.
I know, right? The whole thing is such a mess. It really shows just how tangled up tech and politics and these global power struggles can get, and how quickly things can change, in this digital world.
Exactly. So to catch everyone up, it is Sunday, January 19th, 2025.
Yeah.
And just a few days ago, things were looking really bad for TikTok here in the U.S. The whole saga started with concerns from the U.S. government about ByteDance.
Right. TikTok's parent company?
Yeah, TikTok's Chinese parent company.
Yeah.
And the potential for our data as U.S. users to be accessed or even manipulated by the Chinese government.
And this wasn't, just like some kind of political conspiracy theory or something. There was enough bipartisan concern in Congress that it actually led to a law being passed back in April 2024 to ban the app entirely.
And just to really drive home how seriously Congress is taking this.
Yep.
We saw senators like Tom Cotton and Pete Ricketts issue statements just this past Sunday, like strong statements opposing any kind of extension or delay of the ban. They want TikTok gone, and they mean it.
And then you look at the Supreme Court's decision from last Friday.
Right.
And it's like, okay, this is serious. The court upheld the ban. And what's really crazy is that it was a unanimous decision.
Wow.
All 9 justices agreed that the national security concerns were legitimate.
So at that point, you'd think it was game over for TikTok, right?
Right.
But then things took a turn that, not even the most viral TikTok dance challenge could have predicted.
Yeah, for real. Because even though the Biden administration had said they wouldn't enforce the ban until Trump actually takes office,
Right.
TikTok decided to just take things into their own hands.
So Saturday night, they shut themselves down in the U.S.
I know.
They complied with the law before they were even forced to. Can you imagine the chaos that caused for millions of TikTok creators? It's like their entire world just vanished overnight.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't just about, losing followers or missing trends or whatever. For a lot of these creators, TikTok is how they make a living. It's how they're building businesses and communities. It's how they express themselves. And suddenly it's gone.
And you can really feel that in some of the quotes from the articles you sent. Like Shannon Lange said she was shocked that it would actually just go dark.
Yeah.
And Alex Earl was heartbroken about losing the platform she's been posting on every day for the past 6 years.
6 years.
It really hits home that this isn't just some abstract legal battle.
Yeah.
There are real people whose lives are being turned upside down by this.
Absolutely.
But just when it seemed like the curtain had fallen on TikTok in the U.S., enter Donald Trump's stage right with a plot twist that nobody saw coming.
Oh, man. This is where it gets really interesting. Trump supported the ban during his first term.
Right.
But recently, he's totally flipped. He's gone from wanting TikTok, gone to being its biggest cheerleader, practically.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's wild. He takes to Truth Social and launches this whole Save TikTok campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He's urging companies to keep the app running.
Yeah.
Asking the Supreme Court to reconsider, even promising to step in himself.
And, a president can't just undo a law that Congress passed with an executive order. But what he can do is delay enforcement.
Right.
And that's exactly what he promised to do. He said he'd sign an executive order on Monday, delaying the ban and giving TikTok time to work out a deal.
So within hours of Trump's dramatic declaration, guess what happened?
Oh, I think I know this one. TikTok was back.
TikTok started reappearing on screens all across America. It was like a digital phoenix rising from the ashes.
It really is like some perfectly choreographed TikTok trend, and
Right.
dodge the ban, shut down, come back to life. And then just to really lean into the drama, TikTok released a statement thanking Trump for providing clarity and assurance.
Right.
And they promised to work with him on a long-term solution.
And to solidify this whole, newfound alliance.
Yeah.
We learned the TikTok CEO, Shu, is going to be at Trump's rally tonight.
Wow.
And he's even going to have a front row seat at the inauguration tomorrow.
That's a big change from his earlier statements where he was praising Trump's understanding of the platform.
It is.
Yeah.
So what is this long-term solution that Trump's been talking about? Well, he's been floating this idea of a 50-50 joint venture where a new American owner would partner with ByteDance to run TikTok here in the U.S.
Okay. But before we get into the specifics of that plan and all the potential buyers who are circling TikTok right now, let's take a step back and talk about what Trump's executive order actually means.
Because even though it seems like TikTok has, danced its way out of trouble for now, There are still a lot of unanswered questions and potential legal challenges ahead.
For sure. Like, the whole question of whether an executive order can actually overrule a law passed by Congress, that's a huge debate among legal experts right now.
And we can't forget about the folks in Congress who were totally against any kind of delay, like Senators Cotton and Ricketts.
Right.
They're saying there's no legal basis for what Trump's doing.
This whole situation is really highlighting the tension between executive power and the law, you know? Especially when it comes to these really sensitive issues like national security in the digital age.
It seems like TikTok has dodged a bullet for now, but it definitely isn't out of the woods yet, especially when you consider the business side of things. Who would even want to take on this challenge, knowing they're walking into a political and legal minefield?
Well, there are actually a few contenders. It seems some people are willing to take the risk, each with their own approach. One that really stood out was from Frank McCourt. He offered like a crazy $20 billion for TikTok's U.S. operations.
Okay.
But get this, his plan involves rebuilding the app from scratch.
Really?
Without its famous algorithm.
That's a huge gamble, considering that algorithm is like TikTok's secret weapon.
Right.
It's what keeps people hooked.
Yeah.
Scrolling through their feeds for hours.
Yeah. Exactly. And trying to replicate that kind of technology, even with McCourt's resources. That's a huge undertaking. It makes you wonder if TikTok would even be TikTok without it.
I know. And then there's this wildcard entry from Perplexity AI. It's a search engine startup. And they swooped in with a merger proposal that values the company at a whopping $50 billion.
That's insane.
It is. It's like David and Goliath. But this time, David came with a Silicon Valley bank account.
What's interesting about Perplexity's proposal, though, is that they don't just want TikTok's users. They want to merge their search technology with TikTok's content creation engine.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's a really fascinating idea that could totally shake things up in both the social media and search landscapes.
I can see that. But let's not forget the main reason why TikTok's been on this roller coaster ride in the first place. You know, the U.S. government is seriously worried about data security.
Right.
And the potential for the Chinese government to access or manipulate user information.
And this is where things get tricky, because for all the warnings and accusations, the U.S. government hasn't actually released any hard evidence to back up their claims.
It's like everyone's talking about this invisible threat, this like shadow lurking in the code, but no one's actually seen it.
Exactly. And that lack of transparency just creates so much uncertainty and fuels distrust. It makes it really hard to have a reasonable conversation about the actual risks.
So even if TikTok manages to get past the legal challenges with Trump's executive order and, you know, appease Congress, they're still going to be dealing with this cloud of suspicion, this constant questioning about their motives and connections to China.
And that's something they're going to have to address head on if they want to rebuild trust with users and lawmakers.
Right.
This whole thing has really shown how intertwined tech and politics and global power have become.
Right.
And how these forces can clash in ways that affect all of us.
These past few days have been like the latest chapter in this much bigger story.
Yeah.
One that makes us ask some pretty fundamental questions. Like, how do we balance national security with individual rights in the digital age? How do we navigate this increasingly complex relationship with technology and the companies that control it?
It's definitely a story that's far from over, and it's worth paying attention to, because it's not just about TikTok. It's about the future of the internet, the power of algorithms, and the choices we make as users and citizens in a world where data is the new currency.
This whole thing really makes you think, doesn't it? We talk about data security and national security. But what about our own personal security as users? Should we be worried about what's happening with our data on TikTok or on any social media platform for that matter?
Yeah, it's a question we should all be asking, because the reality is every time we use these platforms, we're kind of making this unspoken agreement.
Right.
We trade our data, our likes, our dislikes, you know, our browsing habits, all of that for access to these services.
Like this digital barter system.
Yeah, exactly.
We give them information. They give us entertainment and connection. But the problem is, most of us don't really understand the terms of this agreement. We just click agree without really knowing what we're agreeing to.
And that's where the worry about manipulation comes in. You know, if we don't know how our data is being used, who has access to it, how these algorithms are deciding what we see, it's easy to feel like we're not really in control anymore.
Especially when you consider the power of an algorithm like TikTok's.
Yeah.
Which is designed to figure out what we like and then just give us more and more of it, which is great when it's helping us find new music or funny cat videos.
Right.
But what happens when that same power is used to, like, subtly influence our opinions, our tastes, even how we vote?
It definitely raises some unsettling questions about who's really making the decisions here. Are we making our own choices, or are we being like nudged in certain directions by these algorithms that know us better than we know ourselves?
It's almost like something out of a sci-fi
I
movie.
know, right?
But instead of robots taking over, it's these algorithms that are slowly shaping our reality.
Yeah. And it's not just TikTok either. It's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these platforms that have become such a big part of our lives. They're all collecting our data, analyzing our behavior, using that information to create these personalized experiences that keep us hooked.
So what can we do about it? How do we protect ourselves in this crazy digital world?
Well, I think the first step is awareness. The more we understand about how these platforms actually work, the better choices we can make about how we use them.
Right. We need to be more critical,
Mm,
not just passively scrolling and taking in whatever's thrown at us.
yeah.
We need to ask questions, challenge what we see, and really think about the content we're consuming and how it's affecting us.
Absolutely. And we have to demand more transparency from these big tech companies. We have a right to know how our data is being used and who has access to it. We need clearer privacy policies, stronger regulations, more accountability from the companies that have so much power over our digital lives.
It's like reading the fine print before you sign a contract. We can't just blindly click agree and hope for the best. We need to be informed, engaged, and we need to speak up about what we want our digital future to look like.
And on a bigger scale, we need to have real conversations about how we regulate these platforms. How do we balance the need for innovation and free speech with the very real concerns about data security and national security? These are tough questions, and there aren't any easy answers.
Well, that's our deep dive into the world of TikTok. It's a platform that's become a cultural phenomenon, a political battleground, and a case study in the challenges and opportunities of this digital age. We've covered a lot today, from legal battles and business deals to the ethical questions at the heart of it all.
This whole situation has really shown us the cracks in our digital world, and it forces us to ask some tough questions about data power and control in the 21st century.
And while we didn't have time to cover every angle of this complex issue, I want to leave you with one final thought. What if the real threat isn't just about data being stolen or manipulated, but about the very nature of these algorithms themselves? What if this constant need for engagement, this endless stream of personalized content, is actually changing our brains and our behavior in ways we don't even realize?
That's a question we all need to think about because the future of our digital lives, maybe even our society, depends on how we answer it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you something to think about and maybe inspired you to be a little more aware, a little more engaged, and a little more empowered in this digital world.
Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.